The LG C10 is one of the most popular TVs on the market today. Before the newer 2021 models come out, we wanted to take some time to play with the settings and show you guys some of our recommendations for different uses. So whether you're a gamer, a film lover, or anywhere in between, we'll look at some of the most important settings that you might want to use for your viewing pleasure. Hey, I'm Alex, a tester here at Ratings.com, where we help people find the best products for their needs. Make sure you subscribe to our channel for the latest videos or check out our website for the full review. The settings we're talking about on the C10 are settings we've looked into and decided to recommend, but that doesn't mean they're perfect for everyone in every case. Feel free to experiment and try out different settings to see if there's something you find that works best for your setup. Now, this is an OLED, and I know there's some worry about burn-in, so we'll also look at some of the settings that can help you manage that. We'll start by looking at the interface and see what you should be looking out for. So when you press the home button, you can open up here and see all of your apps and different kinds of content, such as Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus. And if you go all the way to the end, you can actually edit it and start moving where each app is depending on how much you want to use it. So the remote is also a magic remote, meaning that it works a lot like a Wii remote, where it has a motion sensor that allows you to pick and choose whatever app or setting you want with motion controls. There's also a dial and a button that you can use it like a classic remote if you'd like, but I prefer using the Wii remote function, the magic remote. We also want to take a look at the settings of the TV so that we can change picture modes and really get into the nitty-gritty of the TV. So by pressing the gear button, it brings up this side menu here. And these are just quick little ways to change everything. However, you want to hit the All Settings button because this brings up everything. So you can change your picture mode, your aspect ratio, everything. And the picture mode is what's really important here, since this controls what the image actually looks like. The LG C10 also supports voice commands in the remote itself, outlined by the microphone button in the center. You just tell it where you want to go or which settings you want to change. It works well, but you can't change everything through voice commands. Here's a few that work well. So you can press the little microphone button in the center and ask, "Open YouTube." And it'll open up the YouTube app. If you ever want to get back to the TV, the bottom button is the input, and it lets you pick whichever one you want. So for now, we'll go back to HDMI 1. Now for the gamers out there, we'll want to change a few settings no matter what sort of gaming machine you're using. There's a couple of settings you'll want to enable right off the bat for basically every usage called Ultra HD Deep Color, shown here. So for Ultra HD Color mode, you're going to want to hit the gear button to get into the settings and go into All Settings, wait for it to load a little bit, Additional Settings, and then you'll see HDMI Ultra HD Deep Color. You'll have to enable this on every single HDMI port, but you can only enable it on a port that is currently being used. I've gone ahead and already done it on all of them, so when you have this at home, you might have to do it only on the one that you can use. This will help to make sure that HDMI port is using its full bandwidth. You can show that it's using the full bandwidth on the LG C10 because we know it has an HDMI 2.1 source. HDMI 2.1 is the new standard for HDMI that allows for higher refresh rates and higher resolutions and even more features, such as variable refresh rate, auto low latency mode, and eARC. That means we can get 4K 120 Hz running on our PC, and you can see that working properly right here. So, there's two ways to check this out. The first way is if you press the green button on your remote a whole whack of times, just keep pressing it. It'll pop up with the FreeSync information, but it'll also tell you what the resolution and the refresh rate of your screen is. So you can see that it's 3840 by 2160p, so that's 4K resolution at 120 Hz. You could also see that it is RGB 10-bit, meaning that it is full bandwidth. The second way to check it out is to go into your PC's settings, go to the change resolution, and you can see that it is indeed at 4K. 120 Hz, RGB 10-bit. So that means that it is a full bandwidth HDMI 2.1. On that same note, the PC will automatically put the TV into something called PC mode. This lowers the input lag, but disables a couple of settings that could be useful for watching movies or TV, but we'll get to that later. Since we're talking about gaming here, you'll need to put the TV into the game picture mode. This is really important since it will actually lower the input lag of the TV. Keep in mind that some settings are locked in game mode, so if you want to watch TV and find you need to mess with some options, being in game mode could lock you out of some of the settings you need. Now that we have an acceptable input lag, let's plug in our PS5 and check out some of the features that it can support. Some TVs are able to detect the console and automatically switch over to game mode when you start playing. This is called ALLM, or Auto Low Latency Mode. You can find the instant game response setting right here. So in game mode is useful for the input lag to lower it. However, in additional settings again, there's something instant game response, which I mentioned. In here, it's the same thing as the Ultra HD Deep Color. You have to enable it per HDMI. This allows it so that when you plug in a PlayStation 5 or a PC, it will automatically switch into game mode when you start running a game. Once we start the game, you'll see a notification pop up in the top of the screen. We can also check it out on the Xbox Series X here. So then if we launch a game, just to see that it does switch. Instant game response is launched, HDR, game mode. Lastly, let's check out a feature of HDMI 2.1, variable refresh rate. Also known as VRR, it lets a TV refresh at the same rate as the content being played. This removes any tearing, which is something that occurs when the frame rate of a game is varying on the constant refresh rate of the TV. By enabling AMD FreeSync Premium, you'll be able to use FreeSync with AMD graphics cards, VRR on the consoles once they're available, and G-Sync, so long as you have a GTX 1660 or any of the RTX GPUs. But let's make sure it's working. We're going to use the G-Sync pendulum demo, which essentially allows us to see if there's any tearing that I was talking about. So right now, as it's moving, there is no tearing. This is a good sign because that means that G-Sync is indeed working. If you turn off G-Sync, or FreeSync, depending on your graphics card, you'll see all of these lines as it's moving. That's tearing. For people who want to watch movies, there's a few different settings we'll need to look at. For SDR, our recommended picture setting is Expert Darkroom, which you can find here in the settings menu. In our readings, this picture mode is the most accurate for white balance and color accuracy. We also make a few other changes, such as setting the contrast to 90, sharpness down to 0, color at 50, and tint at 0. If you need the TV's luminosity to be brighter, use the OLED light setting and set it to whatever looks best in your room. This isn't to be confused with the brightness setting, which adjusts the image itself and not the luminance of the TV. We recommend leaving brightness at 50. In the expert controls, you'll want to set the gamma to 2.2, as this is our target gamma. This setting can change the overall brightness of your screen immensely. The last setting we recommend is the color temperature, which should be set to warm 2, as it is the most accurate. If this is too dark, you can switch the picture mode to Expert Bright Room. The rest of the settings shouldn't be played with too much, but if you feel like you need to, adjusting the gamma setting to 1.9 can brighten the image enough for you to catch any details being crushed in dark scenes. Once you start playing HDR content, some of the settings automatically change. So with HDR enabled, you'll want to go into the same place with the settings for the picture modes. We're starting it off on standard, but on the HDR picture mode, we recommend cinema. OLED light at max, contrast, these are all things that the TV automatically changes, so we don't recommend changing any of it. However, there is the dynamic contrast, which you could put it on high, and you can see that it brightens everything. But at the same time, the dark in this section here doesn't seem to change, but the overall image brightens. And then we have dynamic tone mapping, on or off. In this particular scene, it brightens everything, but like I said, it may not depending on the content that you're looking at. So for Dolby Vision content, you'll see Dolby Vision pop up in the top right corner there. And your picture mode settings will also be different. As you can see, it is called Dolby Vision Picture Mode. It has the same ones, but it does change all of the settings. And like I said before, we do not recommend that you change any of them, leave them at what they've been set to. The last thing important to movies, and really any video content, is judder. This is when the TV doesn't show every frame for the exact same amount of time. It's especially obvious in slow, smooth panning shots, and appears like the camera is hesitating to move. Thankfully, this TV can eliminate judder in all types of content by enabling Real Cinema in the picture mode settings shown here. Next is in the picture options. down to Real Cinema, which is on by default in this picture mode. For sports, you'll want to have the same settings we outlined earlier in terms of picture mode and general settings. Something that could be important to note is that you might want to enable motion interpolation or black frame insertion features. Motion interpolation, also known as the soap opera effect, is an optional feature that increases the frame rate of the video, smoothing the motion. So within the settings, in the picture mode settings, we wanted to keep everything as it was. So expert dark, all of these settings are going to be what we had recommended. And you go down into the picture options, and all the way at the bottom you can see the true motion. You'll want to put that to user so that you can change it yourself. And the de-judder and the de-blur are the motion interpolation feature. There's also the black frame insertion, which puts black frames at certain intervals to change the flicker of the TV. This can be useful for gaming or using the TV as a monitor, since it can flicker at the same rate as a game or refresh rate of the PC, but it's also useful for helping to clear up motion in sports environments. The black frame insertion feature is called OLED Motion Pro at the bottom here. And as you can see, the second you turn it on, it gets a little bit dimmer. Medium intensifies it even more, and then high is the most intense. Keep in mind that BFI dims the screen so it won't be as bright. For TV shows, you'll want to follow the same recommendations for movies and sports. And again, feel free to play around depending on the show and see if you prefer a brighter image or some interpolation to smooth out some movement. It's a very personal preference, so if you want some of your favorite shows to be smooth, go with some true motion. If you're planning on using the TV as a monitor, it's really important that you have Ultra HD Deep Color turned on. This allows the TV to show proper 444 chroma subsampling. It essentially allows the TV to clearly display letters and numbers, specifically from a computer so that you can read more clearly. You'll also need PC mode enabled. You can find that setting right here. And check out this example on the screen now. So as you can see, it's not in PC mode right now because it is not showing proper 444. You can see on the red here that the lines are not perfectly straight and the text looks a little bit fuzzy. However, we can fix that by pressing the little home button and going to the home dashboard. This brings up a home dashboard for the TV. This lets you change a couple different settings. But right now we're going to go up to the top right here where it says settings and hit edit. This actually shows us all of our HDMI ports and even the AV. However, what we're going to want to do is click on the icon of the HDMI 1, which is what this computer is plugged into, and scroll down to PC. We're going to hit save, and that's it. And you might think, it just changed an icon. But when we go back to this, you can see that the lines are much clearer and the text is way more sharp. So this is what it means by proper 444. So when you're using this as a monitor, it's going to be a huge difference for your eyes. Last but not least, we'll talk about some of the unique features that come with this OLED to help combat burn-in. Burn-in is when a static image has been permanently burned into the TV. Generally, you wouldn't see the burn-in in every single content unless it's really bad, but it will be noticeable, especially if it's something big like a news network banner or sports team scores in the top corner. So far, our own experiments with burn-in have been pretty good for users who watch a lot of different content, and even then, we're talking thousands of hours. To learn more about burn-in, check out our video about our burn-in test. That said, the TV has a few settings that are able to help reduce your overall burn-in over the TV's lifetime. The first is the screen shift here. So we'll go into the settings, and we'll want to go into the OLED screensaver. This shows us the pixel refresher, the screen shift, and the logo luminance adjustment. We want the screen shift to be on. This shifts the entire image a few pixels to the side and slowly shifts it in the opposite direction over time. This helps to reduce burn-in on a very small element, like fine lines in a video game HUD. It isn't particularly noticeable except when using the C10 like a monitor. That said, you should keep this on. There is also logo luminance adjustment, which automatically dims the area around a logo when it detects one on the screen. This can cause trouble when gaming since it can detect certain UI elements as a logo and dim that section. If you do use it, we recommend the low setting. The pixel refresher menu allows you to manually run a complete pixel refresh cycle, which takes about an hour. The C10 automatically runs a short pixel refresh every 4 hours of cumulative usage once the TV is turned off, so you shouldn't need to worry about running this option. The C10 is a great TV, and while it seems like it can be complicated, it isn't too bad once you play around with it. Experimenting with the different settings while watching some content you know is the best way to find out what works for you and if our recommendations fit what you're looking for. So that's it. What do you think of our recommended settings? Do they work for you? Let us know in the comments below. You can check out all measurements on our website. If you like this video, subscribe to our channel or become an insider for access to our latest results first. Also, we're currently hiring in our offices in Montreal for various positions. So if you want to help people find the best products for their needs, have a look at the careers page on our website. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.